I'm Dustin Cormier, and this is the How to Rock Astrology audio series. The information in this recording is copyrighted by Dustin Cormier, 2015, all rights reserved, except where noted in the recording. The following information on ascendant or rising signs comes from Stephen Arroyo's Chart Interpretation Handbook, copyrighted in 1989 by Stephen Arroyo, published by CRCS Publications in Sebastopol, California. I do not own the following content. Guidelines to interpreting the ascendant. Although the ascendant is of deep and pervasive importance for each individual, there is no denying that it must be related to the rest of the chart, and especially to the sun sign, in order to understand it thoroughly for a particular person. The sun, after all, is the core identity, the very center of the consciousness, the way we assimilate much of our experience, whereas the ascendant, although it varies in importance from person to person, is not as central to the person's nature. It shows, among other things, the approach to life, but the sun shows life itself. The ascendant must serve the purposes, values, and creative goals of the sun for the individual to function happily and fully. A useful tool for understanding how a person's ascendant and sun sign interact is to compare the elements of the two factors. For example, a Cancer sun sign person with a fire sign rising is usually far more extroverted, forcefully expressive, and confident than a Cancer sun individual with, say, a more conservative, self-protective earth sign rising. For another example, an air sign sun person with a water sign rising may appear much more emotional than he or she really is, whereas a water sign sun person with an air sign rising may appear far more detached and less emotional than he or she really is. It should be pointed out that people are often relatively unaware of their ascendant nature as compared to their sun sign. In that sense, the ascendant is a factor that can be consciously developed further over time and consciously utilized to aid one's self-expression. I've known people who are relieved to find what their rising signs were, since it finally gave them a way of identifying a very deep but only semi-conscious tendency in themselves. In some cases, the qualities and abilities symbolized by the ascendant were just beginning to emerge, and learning the astrological keys to this factor helped personal development greatly. I should emphasize here that perhaps more than with most other factors in the chart, the early environment can encourage or suppress the expression of the ascendant's energies, since it is a primary channel with which one interacts with the outer world. The reader should view the following comparative evaluations as guidelines and as questions to explore, rather than as rigid statements of absolute truth. Cancer modality or quadruplicity. The Cancer modality is cardinal, the active energy mode. There are exactly 4 of these active signs in the zodiac belonging to the cardinal modality. These include Aries, Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn, and they all share similar characteristics. The 4 cardinal signs exhibit more restlessness than the other 8 signs. There's a sense of, I've got to do something, and a tendency to be enamored by activity for activity's sake. These active signs share the challenge of identifying the source of their behavior. Are they motivated by true inspiration, or are they rushing around because they feel like the crap's going to hit the fan? Or maybe they're trying to avoid feeling lazy and unproductive. The element of the ascendant. The element of the ascendant reveals the quality of energy flow directly vitalizing the physical body and the overall approach to life. Fire or air signs rising tend to conduct energy, encouraging active self-expression and dynamic expenditure of energy. Earth or water rising signs tend to conserve and resist the flow of vital energies, and hence indicate self-containment, sometimes self-repression, and the tendency of living within oneself. Water signs rising, Cancer, Scorpio, and Pisces. Most easily influenced by the environment and by other people. Sensitive, moody, wary because of a strong feeling of vulnerability and likelihood of being hurt. Protective of self, but also of others one cares about. Sympathetic, feels others' emotions immediately and forcefully. Very private, lives deeply within oneself. Cancer Ascendant. A sympathetic, mild demeanor, but the sensitivity and sympathy are often directed just as much toward oneself as toward others, often being oversensitive to hurts and slights. In this sense, Cancer rising seems to exhibit a more superficial type of empathy for others than Cancer sun, whose feelings tend to go deeper and whose sentiment is more personally touching. Cancer ascendant often seems even more reserved and private than the Cancer sun person, who, by virtue of his or her great acting ability, can often seem quite social and outgoing. The Cancer rising person is usually a strong introvert, although I have seen cases where the moon was in Leo or a similar extroverted sign, and the more outward-oriented tendencies were predominant. The following information comes from Isabel Hickey's classic text, Astrology, A Cosmic Science, copyrighted in 1992 by Isabel M. Hickey Trust, published by CRCS Publications in Sebastopol, California. I do not own the following content. Cancer on the Ascendant. Timid and quiet, especially in early life. Sensitive and retreats when threatened. Fond of traveling, but must always have a home base from which to operate. Sympathetic, receptive, passive, and psychic. Responds to life through feeling, not thinking. Moods changeable, up and down like the tides. Easily upset, but does not stay disturbed for long. Note the sign the moon is in and its aspects. If the moon is angular, meaning the 1st, 4th, 7th, or 10th house, the individual will be involved with the public mass consciousness in some way. A tendency to indigestion when emotionally disturbed. The solar plexus reaction upsets the juices of the stomach. The following information comes from The Secrets of Your Rising Sign by William Lamb with Webb Harris, Jr., copyrighted by William Lamb in 2004, first published in the USA by Fairwinds Press in Gloucester, Massachusetts. I do not own the following content. He's the willing worker. Thin-skinned and sensitive, with a gentle demeanor, cautious Cancer is always politic and found often working long hours in public places, taking advantage of an ability to avoid giving offense. People with Cancer rising get the job done in a utilitarian, worker-bee fashion. As children, they love to earn and stash money, and even in youth, they have a penchant for saving rather than spending. Cancer children are usually industrious, sensitive, cautious about almost everything, and quite loving toward their mothers. Sentimentality towards the past helps these folks learn from their experience, but sometimes leaves them emotionally inhibited, hesitant to embrace today's opportunities. In these cases, they live in the past rather than learn from it. They make themselves scarce if faced with rejection, but are cagey when threatened and skilled at avoiding intensity. They can be very non-committal. Don't fence me in, don't back me into a corner. Physical type. Short shuffle in the walk, sometimes poor eyesight. Favored colors. Olive green, forest green, smoky gray, silver. The following information comes from Isabel Hickey's Astrology, A Cosmic Science, copyrighted in 1992 by Isabel M. Hickey Trust, published by CRCS Publications in Sebastopol, California. The significance of the Sun and the Sun sign in astrology. The symbol of the Sun in astrology is a circle with a dot in the middle. This is a very deep occult spiritual symbolism. The circle represents the eternal self that did not start here and does not finish here on earth. The dot in the middle represents the divine spark at the center of every living cell, the light which lighteth every man with which cometh into the world. It is the point of light at the center of every living cell. In the blueprint, the sun represents the main expression of the individual, the heart and core of beingness. The sun has a different effect on individuals born at different times of the year. According to the sign and house in which the sun is placed, we are able to judge the general vitality and physique, the qualities of leadership, and the individual's ability to succeed in life. In a personal chart, the sun represents the basic drive for significance, the will, male relationships and female charts, especially with the father, vital energy coming from the etheric levels and prana, fuel on which the total personality operates, urge for power, constitutional strength, and finally, a powerful sun means very great power to do and to be. Keywords of the sun: will, individuality, spirit. The sun is the significator of the spirit in man, the beingness or isness of life. It rules the basic drive for significance, the will to be. Physically, the sun is the sustainer of life, giver of light, heat, and energy. More than anything else in the chart, it shows the will, man's highest expression. Its aspects show deep character traits, the chief ambitions. It needs aspects to the planets for strength of expression in the horoscope. As the sun moves through the signs, its return to the sign of its exaltation, Aries, the eastern horizon, marks the beginning of the astrological year. Springtime brings the release of a new cycle of life. As the sun moves through the houses, its return to the eastern horizon is the beginning of the astrological day, sunrise. The sun sign in its element. The following information comes from Stephen Arroyo's Chart Interpretation Handbook, copyrighted in 1989 by Stephen Arroyo, published by CRCS Publications in Sebastopol, California. I do not own the following content. The sun sign's element is usually dominant in considering the overall psychology of a person. This is so because the sun sign's element reveals the attunement of one's basic vitality, identity, and power of self-projection, as well as the fundamental quality of his or her consciousness. The element of one's sun sign reveals the basic inner force motivating everything we do. The element of the sun sign also gives insight into how any individual sees life itself and what expectations they have of the life experience. Leo Sun. Leo is a fire sign. These are the common characteristics of people born with the sun in fire signs. Basically motivated by inspirations and aspirations. Recharges energy through vigorous, physically demanding activity and by pursuing new visions for the future. Interpretive guidelines for Sun in Leo. Expresses self with warmly radiant vitality and constant need to be noticed. Creative energy is colored by a sense of drama and bigness. Motivated by a need to be recognized for one's generosity. Radiates confidence and encouragement to others. Can vitalize any enterprise. Pride is a dominant personality characteristic. Heartfelt but childlike, and emotions are always at work. This final article comes from The Secrets of Your Rising Sign by William Lamb with Webb Harris, Jr., copyrighted by William Lamb in 2004, first published in the USA by Fair Winds Press in Gloucester, Massachusetts. I do not own the following content. Leo born pre-dawn. Leo with Cancer rising. These are the sensitive, competent workaholics of the zodiac. Cancer feels dutiful, while Leo takes pride in a conscientious effort. So these people never need anyone to motivate them. They already feel like it's their responsibility to make the grass green. To say the least, they're not too objective. They feel the weight of the world when it comes to their duties and obligations, whether it's business or personal. They often have two spouses, their partner and their career. But marrying their career can lead them to a very limited perspective of life if they aren't careful. Leos with Cancer rising are determined and diligent and well equipped to run their own business. As a matter of fact, self-employment is probably the best vocational fit for them, because Leos usually lack flexibility when it comes to being told what to do, and their stubborn streak will sometimes get them into trouble with the boss. If they can be farmers or real estate brokers, or if they make substantial profits as landlords, they're apt to feel like they've died and gone to heaven. Leos born pre-dawn are affectionate, generous with their concern, and always willing to offer a shoulder to cry on. They'll happily whip up a hot meal for a down-and-out friend. But as understanding as they are, they need to grow an objective eye through which they can view themselves in perspective. Leos can be so self-involved and prone to obsess on things that they become oblivious to their surroundings, and cautious Cancer is very susceptible to emotional confusion. It's not uncommon for these Leos to find themselves in personal relationships that seem to hold no promise for improvement. Emotionally dependent, fearing being alone, resistant to change, and nostalgic for the past, they stay in hopeless circumstances where they're a more servant than a partner. They just need to fill their lives with responsible activity and pay their partner no mind. And they need to avoid indiscriminately unloading their emotional disappointment on sympathetic ears wherever they can find them. That's no way for lordly Leos to fulfill themselves. Before they know it, they'll come to resemble that cowardly lion with too little heart, cramped in a steel cage in a roadside carnival. Leos with Cancer rising need to apply more objectivity to their view of life. They can be objective for others in a nurturing way, but seeing themselves in perspective isn't so easy. Once they understand what they really want in life, all they have to do, with their Leo competence and confidence, is simply get to it.